of Bevel. That decision, that specific play, all of it. It came from him. He was the source of it. Thus, he deserves the most blame, at least 51% of the blame. Now, in second place would be Pete Carroll. It is his team. It's his ship. He runs the show. He's aware of everything that's going on. He has veto power on everything. So when he heard that play go through the headset, he should have immediately went, wait, what? Nope, Russell, do this instead. Either being a fade route or a bootleg or handing the ball off to Marshawn Lynch, or heck, even a quarterback sneak might even work if they were so dang close. Literally anything but a pass over the middle. But, like I said, when Belichick didn't call that timeout, Carroll got thrown off. And it took him out of the zone that he was in. But the real error fault that I find with Carroll was the strategy that he said they had for it in the first place. That's the one thing that I hold against Carroll solely, was the philosophy that they were going into that situation with in the first place. Quoted as saying after the game, we had the game won. You cannot be thinking that way when the scoreboard says you're down by 4. You need to be thinking, we need to get this one last yard. Not, well, how do we want to get it? Do we want to run the ball with Mark? Do we want to have Russell Wilson throw for a touchdown? And that's another thing. People with the whole, they didn't want Marshawn Lynch to get the MVP. I definitely feel that's a bunch of nonsense. I think if it was up to Pete Carroll choosing who got to be the MVP in the Seahawks win, he would have loved Marshawn Lynch to get that award. I really do feel that. If you follow that just group of guys, that Seahawks locker room, they've all got each other's backs. And I don't buy that for a second. But still, we give Pete Carroll, I don't know, maybe 30-40% of the blame, somewhere in there. Now, as far as I'm concerned, there are 2 more people who should shoulder a little bit of this blame. And in third place would be the wide receiver, Mr. Lockett. What a weak route, what a weak effort to get that ball out of the air. He made no play on that ball. He wasn't aggressive. He was lazy, like I said, in his route running and in his effort to grab the ball. He just let Butler come in, push him over, and take it. And running a short, quick route within 5 yards, that no contact that's remotely close to the timing of the ball getting there is going to be called as pass interference. So you got to be going strong for that. You got to get in position. You got to be playing tough. And you got to at least make sure that you rip that ball out of Butler's hands, so that it's an incompletion. So I really personally feel that Lockett deserves the third most share of the blame, but not very much. Maybe 5 to 10%. And finally, that would bring us to Mr. Russell Wilson. Now here's where I feel Russell Wilson does deserve a tiny bit of the blame for the loss. When Peyton Manning walks up to the line of scrimmage and there is a play called that he feels is not going to work, what does he do? He calls and, say it with me, Russell Wilson, an audible. That's right, very good. Now, Pete Carroll after the game also said that part of the reason for the pass as opposed to the run, just in general, was because they were in the Patriots' defense was in their goal line package. And the Seahawks had 3 wide receivers out on the field. So they were in a personnel group that was more situated to pass against the Patriots to stop the run. Now, the Patriots, after the game, said they were in a goal line formation, but they were in a 3 corners goal line formation, basically a nickel defense version of the goal line formation. So, in fact, they were not in true goal line formation, and they did have all 3 wide receivers accounted for. thus not making it an ideal situation for a pass, as Pete Carroll claimed he thought it was. So, when Russell Wilson gets up to the line of scrimmage and does his pre-snap read and looks and sees that they, in fact, have 3 defensive backs out there to account for those 3 wide receivers, it is up to him to call an audible at the line of scrimmage. And he should have already been thinking, maybe I should call an audible as soon as quick slant over the middle came through the headset. I mean, Russell Wilson has always presented himself as a very intelligent, mature young man. I can't for one second begin to imagine that when that play call came through his headset, part of his brain didn't go, what the? You know, I mean, God knows mine did when I saw what the play call was. You know, but not in the throw itself or the placement of the ball or the timing of any of that. Nothing in what he physically did during the play do I hold him responsible for them losing the game. Steve Young said, well, ultimately the ball came out of his hands and he led the receiver when he shouldn't have. He should have thrown a back shoulder pass there. That was the perfect pass. Again, if that happens, he doesn't get in the end zone. He's tackled short. Watch the replay from the right angle in slow motion. You will see that to be of the most strong likelihood. Russell Wilson knew that he had to throw the ball where if the receiver caught it, it was going to be a touchdown. And that's where Russell Wilson put it. Lockett didn't get there. Not on Wilson. But I do truly, strongly feel that the only mistake Russell Wilson made on that final play was not calling an audible. It was not the throw itself. So, to recap that, worst play call in the history of ever. Mostly Bevel's fault. Second, Carroll. Third, Lockett with a little bit. And just a tiny bit, Russell Wilson. That's my take on Super Bowl 49 and the worst call in the history of sports. Whew. All right. Hopefully that is out of my system for good. Thank you for listening to someone talk about that play, that game, one final time. Again, you're listening to Balls Deep Sports Talk here on WNLM Northern Lights Radio at WNLMradio.com. I'm your host, Scotty Ball, talking sports with you. Now we're going to wrap up just a little bit of NFL segment so far. That's the title I got for it. And again, if you have any suggestions, comments, feedback on anything, sports at WNLMradio.com or message me on Facebook. Find us there, add us to your likes, your friends. Balls Deep Sports Talk. And so far, I'm not one of those nuts, but I will tune in to find out a little bit of information from it. But here's what I want to say, just touching as far as the whole draft process. Now, I can't stand when people cry value combine results. Are there a lot of times where GMs and front office people overreact or fall too much in love with combine results that lead them to make a poor decision when it all plays out? Absolutely. I'm not going to deny that doesn't happen. It happens all the time. But the thing is, that's publicized when it happens all the time. What the flip side happens when you find a guy who we didn't know a whole lot about going into the draft, but he had a great combine, and so his draft stock rises, and he's actually a success at the NFL. That's rarely publicized. We don't talk about those stories. But they happen just as often, if not maybe a little more often. Because what these front office people learn about people at the combines, it does factor into whether or not they are successful on the NFL level. Just because you were a great footballing player means absolutely nothing as far as if you will be successful or not in the NFL. It is a completely different set of circumstances, set of skills that one needs to be successful. Can you get a good idea of how good of a shot they got based off of how good they were in college? Absolutely, you can get a great idea. But you can't get the whole picture. You can't just look at that. You need other ways of gathering information. It's more complicated than that. If it wasn't, everybody would have great players all the time. Nobody would have misses. They'd just correctly identify the good guys always. So it's complicated, and that's why we have the combine as part of the draft process. So if you're going to tell me the combine's a bunch of crap, don't take any stock in it whatsoever, you couldn't be more wrong. But I do completely agree with you if you feel that too much stock can be placed into these combine results. I do agree with that. I see it happen. It does happen. But you can't blame the whole combine's existence for that occurrence. I mean, more good comes out of the combine than bad. All right. Now, as far as the actual draft goes, there is a little to one team's draft plans regarding one of their positions of need, or at least now that they feel is one of their positions of need, and that would be the Cleveland Browns. They have announced that they will be looking to draft a starting quarterback or sign a free agent starting quarterback in this offseason after meeting with Johnny Manziel. Coach it was doing the press conference. One of the team spokespersons, but I believe it was the head coach, announced that Manziel's issues were, quote, deeper than we thought. So it sounds as though Manziel's rehab stint is going to be taking much more time than both he and the Cleveland Browns had initially. A new starting quarterback for the upcoming season. I highly expect that they will not cut ties with Johnny Manziel in any way. It would look very bad for the organization to not be supportive of one of their players going through a situation like what Mr. Manziel is. So I completely expect them to keep him on as long as it is efficient, as long as it makes sense on the books. They will keep him around, and hopefully he is able to get his act together. But it doesn't look like Johnny Football will be the starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns or any other NFL team for that matter at the start of the upcoming NFL season, barring, some unforeseen. But for lighter news for those Browns fans out there, all 5 of them, I'm just kidding. It's hard to not like the Browns. They've never done anything that's made anyone want to hate them because they're usually not good enough. I swear, I'm not anti-Browns. But anyway, light news for the Browns. They are finally, believe it or not, the Cleveland Browns are finally going to have a logo. Can you believe it? No more plain orange helmet. They're actually going to have a picture of something on the helmet. So I believe they're going to announce that sometime this next week. Unveil it, probably. I would assume that announce it. And I'm curious to see what they unveil. As I have seen some social media posts lately that people in fact picked Mr. Cleveland Brown from the Cleveland Show or Family Guy fame as the logo. I would go out and buy all of their merchandise and become the biggest Cleveland Browns fan in the state of Minnesota. And a dog of some kind, sticking with the dog pound fan base theme. But who knows? And I don't know if anybody. Rick Spielman, GM for the Vikings, says he expects, and I quote that word, expects AP to play for the Minnesota Vikings this upcoming season, assuming that he is reinstated by the NFL. Little bad news for Vikings fans. For Arizona Cardinal fans, they signed Larry Fitzgerald to a 2-year extension. So he will be sticking around in Arizona